Booyah.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. I am your host, Richie, here with my guy, Mr. Idris Salam, aka Bosco from the Bronx.
Yes, sir. Happy Wu-Tang Wednesday.
Wu Tang Wednesday. Yes, indeed. Wu Tang forever, twice on a Sunday.
Yes, sir.
This Sunday, we don't have any football, or at least any football that we want to watch. We have a glorified flag football game that I don't want any part of.
Nah.
But that gives us the opportunity to talk about NFL awards. That is something that we are going to be hitting on tonight on the show. In addition to that, we're going to be speaking on the red hot New York Knickerbockers, as promised earlier today on IG. I said I do want to speak on our team. They have an off night, but they will be getting ready to host the Indiana Pacers tomorrow. Knicks team that keeps having bodies falling, but they keep racking up W's, and definitely want to speak on them. Big game in the Western Conference tonight around the association. We'll speak on that as well. And predominantly we're going to hit on awards tonight. Zappy should be joining us in a couple of minutes. He did want to do a segment regarding the state of his Dallas Cowboys, and I think me and Idris will rebuttal that, as well as speaking on the state of the Giants and some things we see going forward into next year. But I do want to ask you this, Idris. What are your thoughts on the future of the New York Knicks in terms of immediate future? Like, what do you think? Where do you think we're going right now?
I think with Randall being down, I think we'll struggle a little bit. But I think we got enough to keep us afloat, or at least keep us from falling too far down. I think we can maintain between, I guess, number 3 and number 6 while he's out, because we're playing good ball. Everything's cohesive, and we're beating teams, and we're beating teams. I mean, beating them, not just winning by 5-10 points. We're laying the wood to them. So
I think what's encouraging is that, right now the Knicks are the number 3 seed in the conference, only a game and a half behind number 2 Philly, and I have reason to believe that it's more of a buy-in to the system, because I believe that even though you can't just necessarily replace a Julius Randle with one player, or what a Hartenstein brings with one player, I think as a unit, this team is really buying in.
Yeah.
Now, OG, his situation is not one to truly get, overzealous about. You're talking essentially elbow inflammation. Where Julius, I think we're looking at the better part of a month. We had hit on that previous show. Got a comment coming in. Good evening, gentlemen. It's Mr. Nast. How you doing, boss? I did get your message, Mr. Nast, about that email. Check it if you haven't already. But yeah, I like your idea, and I definitely think it's something that we should talk about in further detail when we have a chance. Absolutely good idea, and thank you for joining us tonight. To your point, Idris, they got to weather it. You don't want to fall too far out of the elite, because you want to give yourself an opportunity to maybe catch the Bucks. Celtics aren't out of the question. There's still plenty of season left, but it starts and ends with Jalen Brunson. And when I see the way that Jalen Brunson, being the master facilitator, also being able to take over games, just being an elite scorer, it's so encouraging, because I really believe that when you look at how he elevates everybody on the team, it gives me a reason to believe that they do have a little something more than they've had in previous years. They kind of have, in my opinion, what looks like a team that very much so can play deep into the playoffs. And I haven't said that about a Knicks team. You would have to honestly go back to the days of when we had Jay Kidd for that one season for me to truly say that I completely buy in to the Knicks being that team. And right now, it's, the plus minutes in terms of, value in terms of what OG has brought. That is one of the most genius trades the Knicks have ever made. And this is an organization that you follow their history. A lot of their trades have been scoffed at.
I like what I see with Brunson, because Brunson, he's bringing something we haven't had in a while. We got actually a point guard who's running the point, who can score. And, Juju, we were so used to seeing him bringing the ball up court, trying to be the point guard and doing all this nonsense. Now you got a guy who's basically he's like, you do what you're supposed to do. You do what you're supposed to do. You do what you're supposed to do. I'll take care of this. And now everyone can actually play their position. If you're the shooting guard, you can play your shooting guard. If you're the 3, if you're the 4, the 5, do your thing. And with Tibbs, like you said, everyone's buying into this system. It's like, okay, this is how we're going to do. We're going to play defense. We're going to play offense. How you play down here, you need to play up here. How you play on this end of the court, you got to play on that end of the court. I think we may not catch Boston, because Boston just looked like, wow. I think we can catch Philly. We've already beat the brakes out of them off of one time. I think we just got to stick with what we're going with. Stick with what we have. Just everyone play your positions. Don't be a superstar. Play your position. That's all you got to do. And Brunson is just like, golly, I mean.
Yeah, it seems like, while we talk about all-star games, things of that nature, and while we always speak on how so much of it has become a popularity contest, there's no denying that awards tonight, so much of it has become a popularity contest.
All right, my bad. Go ahead.
No, you good. You good, brother. You good. So much has become a popularity contest, and his impact is palpable. I mean, you see what he has brought to. You see what he has brought to this Knicks team, and it's truly remarkable when I think about that. This is a guy that Dallas literally let leave.
Yes.
They pounded on the Nuggets. Nuggets lost a close one tonight to OKC. Thing is, I see the Eastern Conference as a 4-team race. We know that with Coach Spoelstra, it is undeniable that the Miami Heat are going to be a player when it counts, because they're going to give you their best punch because of how well they're coached.
Always.
But when I think about the top tier of the East, the reason why I have an honest belief that the New York Knicks can indeed possibly climb to the ECF, Philadelphia, granted, Doc is no longer their coach, still has a propensity for coming up small recent years in the playoffs. And now Doc is coaching the team that's ahead of the Knicks in the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, this is a team that's a ready-made team. You got Dame time. Giannis is doing his thing. They have a deep rotation. But, it was kind of crazy when I think about, paying 3 coaches and how they went about firing a guy at the time when I think they were 30-13, 31-13, something along those lines. But Milwaukee Bucks, some holdovers from that championship squad. Out west, it's going to be very hard to figure. OKC definitely and possibly, in my opinion, a year ahead of schedule, at least a year ahead. They're doing. Minnesota, the defending world champions. It's going to be hard for them to come back, because you can make a logical argument that the top 6 teams in the Western Conference are all capable of winning a championship. And in that regard, there's going to be some great playoff basketball. I know Zappy, who just joined us, talked off air about his Warriors and how he believes that potentially blowing it up, potentially fire sailing, thinking about the future. I think when you go to the table at trade time, I would say everybody is on the table with the exception of Steph Curry. There's really nobody on that roster that should essentially be protected. So in that regard, I think that's where they're at right now. Zap, welcome to the show, bud. Good to see you. We started off with the NBA. As you can see, I was going on a tangent about our Knicks and where I think they could end up. But what are your thoughts on your Warriors, Zappy?
I mean, by the sounds of things with the Warriors, no moves are going to be made. There's talks about them possibly going after Dejounte Murray, but then the club just came out and said they have no intentions on moving on from Draymond Green, who's still under contract for a few more years. Klay Thompson is on a prove-it year, and right now he's not really proving it, so I don't know if the Warriors are going to fork out the cash to bring him back. But you bring in a guy like Jonathan Kuminga, who had some choice words a couple weeks ago about Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to trade somebody, he's really the asset you have in order to go get that player. But that player was recently traded, and that's Pascal Siakam. He's the guy they needed to go after, and they didn't. So really with the Warriors, I think it's going to be, they're going to run with this ship and sink with it. If they don't make it into the play-in tournament, then it's obvious we know why. I mean, they're hurt right now.
Yeah.
But I could see a guy like Chris Paul being made available, seeing if somebody would take on his contract. But as far as the core nucleus of guys, I don't think they're going to be making any big moves, especially when the two names they wanted. We look at a Giannis Antetokounmpo who got what he wanted with Dame Lillard being traded there. So you take him out of the equation, and you look at Pascal Siakam, he just gets traded. So you take him out of the equation, and you ask yourself, who is out there that is available that can come make this team a championship team? And really, when you're talking about the West, there's no trade that's going to have them competing with Sacramento, Denver, the Clippers, the Thunder, or the T-Wolves. They're just age is catching up to them, and that's just the nature of the game. When you're a team that does so well, eventually you get old and you see the decline happen. We've seen it with all the greats.
Boston, that Boston Celtics back team with Bird, and they got old.
Yeah, they got old, and the same thing happened to that more recent championship squad. You know, with their big three with Doc Rivers, you know, they were able to get one, but I think as basketball fans, we could probably agree that if they would have maybe made those trades a couple years earlier, potentially they would have won a couple before Miami, you know, with the, you know, forming like the Avengers, you know, on the decision night. I do believe that maybe Boston could have got one more. I mean, hell, you revisit those two series against Kobe and Powell's Lakers. Either series could have won either way. A couple of plays in either series, and it could have been a different result.
I'm kind of surprised. Okay.
I was going to say, the one team that I'm going to keep an eye on, which is going to benefit the Warriors or the Lakers, is the Chicago Bulls, because they have Zach LaVine that they want to move on from. They have DeRozan, who they want to move on from. They have the pieces. So if there's a team that I'm going to watch out for that possibly the Warriors goes after, it's going to be the Bulls. They're the one that has all the trade assets, because it's not working what they did.
Yeah, they've been trying to get rid of LaVine for a little while, since last season. You know, I know the Warriors in decline, but the one I thought Chris Paul would bring more to the table when he got there. I really thought he would open the court more for Clay, Dre, and Steph. But it just ain't. It's just not working, man.
They need a big man. Personally, I think they need the guy that can play the inside-outside game. And, you know, Kevon Looney is always going to be known as the guy that is going to give you great defensive series, get you rebounds, get you second chance points. But they need that guy that could spread the floor, and they just don't have that right now. You know, if you look at their starting lineup, it's a small lineup right now, a lineup that is just not going to succeed against the bigger teams. You put this lineup against the likes of a Boston, let's just say in the Eastern Conference, or the Bucks, they won't survive. It's just crazy that our tone about this Golden State Warriors has changed over a span of 1 year, and it's almost the same team.
But Steph's still doing Steph things, though.
Absolutely. And I will say, I have to give credit to upper management in Golden State to sit here and say, hey, look, we're not going to make a trade unless if Steph is on board with it. So that right there told me Steph probably said, don't trade Clay. That's still my boy. Don't trade Draymond, even though he's a bit of a cancer this year. Yeah, his defensive presence, him being in that locker room, he's the heartbeat of the team. Yeah, that's the bottom line with the Warriors when Draymond Green. So it comes down to, are they willing from Jonathan Kuminga? Are they willing to move on for him to go get another small guard? I can't see it. I can't see it. And then, you know, I thought at one point the Sixers might be trading Joel Embiid. I don't think they're going to do it.
I don't think
so. I think that I'm really looking at this year's trade deadline as being a quieter one than what we've been used to in years past.
But you know what the funny thing about it? Remember the bad year they had a couple of years ago? They sat down and said, okay, this season is done. They come back the next year and win the championship.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but
everybody was hurt that year.
Andrew Wiggins. Yeah,
it was hurt.
You know, but Andrew Wiggins is another one who's underperformed. That's someone that I think they're trying to move on from. but his contract is not
Contract is
allowing him. So it's it's one of those. The Warriors, they did this to themselves.
Yeah.
Just like in the 2016 finals, they live by the three or they're going to die by the three. They did it against the Raptors. Granted, there was injuries as well, but this is the team you built the last 8 years, 9 years. This is what you built.
Yeah.
And now it's like, all right, well, it's not doing much anymore, and it's been more than 9 years, but I'm just giving an example. But I look at teams in the East that could possibly be players you could trade with. I mean, Brooklyn, they don't really have anything else to trade anymore. They got rid of all that. You look at the Raptors, they already got rid of Siakam. The Hornets, they're not going to get rid of Ball. Nah. The Pistons, who do you want off that team that tied the record for most consecutive losses in a season, And then you look at the Magic, a still young team, but they're the type of team that's trying to get a veteran presence in there to team up with them. The other team I could keep an eye on is the Miami Heat. This is a team that they have a lot of talent in, and to me, they're not reaching what they should be doing. In my opinion, they should be a top 4 team, not a team playing to stay in the play-in tournament, So it's just.
But if you track it back to last year, they were in the play-in.
They were,
and by the skin of their ass, because they almost got eliminated before it even really started.
Yeah,
they took. If I'm not mistaken, taking it back last year, was it the Atlanta Hawks that beat them in that first game, and then they. It was weird. Yeah, it was the Hawks. Yeah, nobody had Miami accomplishing what they did, especially with the injury to Tyler Hero in that same series. Giannis was injured.
I thought they would.
But no, it's a credit to the coaching, because you got 2 Knicks fans sitting here on the panel, and we will both tell you without hesitation that in last year's playoffs, Eric Spoelstra outcoached Tom Thibodeau, and that was a huge factor as to why the Heat won that series. And, timely shooting and timely defensive stops, because Jalen Brunson played his heart out. But I think what killed the Knicks last year and what is more encouraging about this year is that while Brunson is still the mass facilitator and the guy that needs to have the ball in his hands every play, the addition of OG really expands the horizons for the rest of this roster. Hart is playing within himself. DiVincenzo is starting to get more and more comfortable.
Right.
Quentin Grimes is gradually getting more and more into the swing of things because obviously when you ship out quickly as well as Barrett, it's going to lead to more opportunities. And now with the injuries, it's like, okay, who are the big men that know this system, that are sitting on their couch, but that haven't gotten too fat yet? Taj, we're going to call you for like the 8th time in the last 6 months. Hey, you want to come back and see if we give you another 10 days? Hartenstein, you got to take your 10.
Honestly, as we're talking about your Knicks, that's a team that I think should pick up the phone and call a Golden State, because personally, when I look at your roster and I look at Josh Hart, for example, I'm a bigger fan of him being your 6th man. So if you could bring in an Andrew Wiggins to put in at your 3, I think that would benefit you guys a lot. So that, if we're talking about teams in the East, especially the Knicks, because let's get this right, guys. Last year, you guys were ahead of schedule and you did great. This year, you guys present a very big challenge to Boston, a very big. And I know they've beat you guys 3-0 this year. I know they have. But when it comes to time to playoff time, I think this New York Knicks team could make the Celtics have fits all throughout a 7-game series. So I look at the Knicks as being one of those teams that I think they're going to try to make a move and get another guy in there. So if you can get it where you can put Josh Hart as your 6th man, I think that would go a long way, honestly.
Yeah, I like the idea, and like I said, OG has been such a great contributor. But the thing is, and I said this to you, I think off air, Zappy, with Tom Thibodeau-led teams, and we said it about Luol Deng and Derrick Rose in the past. My hope as a Knicks fan is that they don't burn these guys out before the playoffs start. But to your point about making a move with a team like Golden State, who would be more than welcoming some draft capital to move on from some players because of the fact that they're kind of in a weird place right now. They don't necessarily have to completely blow it up, but they need to reload. And in order to reload, you got to take a couple of steps back. This could be the right time to pluck a couple of fruits off of, Golden State's tree, so to speak. And, we'll see how that plays out in general. But In the West, I just don't feel comfortable picking a team right now. Out East, it's the Celtics and everybody else. But I do believe that the New York Knicks are a lot closer to being the second best team in the East than people truly realize. And this is, mind you, with all the injuries.
You mean you don't have the Lakers winning it this year?
I can't look in the West.
Only in the Legends tournament.
Right. No, I tip my hat off to the T-Wolves for one this year with baby Jordan. But I can't say the West is not Denver's. I mean, they're the defending champs that has everyone back. Because when it comes time for playoff time, this team will be playing just fine. You know, and I look at OKC, they're young. Yeah. Who's got that playoff mentality in OKC? And who's got that playoff mentality in Minnesota?
I'll tell you what would be poetic is if you see a potential first-round matchup or even a second-round matchup for that matter, where OKC locks horns with the Phoenix Suns and outs Kevin Durant. How sick would that be?
That'd be great. That would be awesome. That'd be great.
Idris's buddy, Kevin Durant. We're going to slide it along to football. Those guys. So they love each other. So, switching it towards football, before we hit on our awards and the state of the Cowboys, as I mentioned before he arrived, Zappy is going to hit on some of that. I did want to hear and speak to you guys about this. NFL coaching trending towards youth and what this means for the veterans that are on the market. Guys like a Bill Belichick, Mike Vrabel, two big names, one, the biggest name being Belichick. Zappy did drive home a decent point that seemed to make some sense to me. With the Dallas Cowboys and Buffalo Bills both kind of being in a bit of a maybe limbo would be the right way with their head coaches. McCarthy in Dallas's case, McDermott in Buffalo's case. Perhaps Bill does indeed sit this year out and kind of weighs the NFL coaching landscape going into 2025. Mm-hmm. But I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, if you're Buffalo and you can get Bill Belichick now, I'm not saying that I would want that guy running things up in the GM office, but I would definitely trust him to fix my defense and to get Josh Allen to that next level because, everybody talks about, Buffalo, they're not a good playoff team. I don't agree completely. Mm-hmm. Who do they keep losing to? The guys who keep winning Super Bowls, the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's not like they're just getting beat by bums. Granted, last year it did happen to be Cincinnati, but, all those games come down to a handful of plays. And nobody's going to tell me that a guy like a Bill Belichick can't shorten the gap when it comes to some of this. They
need a DC now because they lost their DC.
Yeah. And, the other thing I will say with the NFL coaching, which, I tip my hat off to that because just last year, even 2 years ago, when we saw coaches like a Lovie Smith, who did a pretty good job with the Texans, he had them playing, but he gets fired. Mm-hmm. To see 4 minority coaches become head coaches this offseason is an incredible task. We see Raheem Morris. We see Antonio Pierce. We see Jared Mayo. And then we say Dave Canales. So 3 black guys and a Mexican. That's a great sign for the NFL. And then when you throw in the fact that we're talking about younger coaches, gentlemen, we just watched Jared Mayo and Antonio Pierce play against each other not too long ago in the Super Bowl. And now they're 2 head coaches, and we're talking about D'Amico Ryans, who was playing not too long ago either. The NFL, this is something that they were talking about for a while when we saw Sean McVay win with the Rams, or at least get to the Super Bowl and lose in embarrassing fashion to the Patriots. But we're seeing the youth movement with head coaches because I think more players respond better to the youth, unless if you are an Andy Reid, a Bill Belichick, or a Mike Tomlin, someone that has more than earned the discipline or the respect of the league itself. So I do like that the NFL has changed because let's face it, man, if you stick to the same old guys, if it smells like poop, it looks like poop, it probably is going to be poop, and I give credit to where the NFL is going because the game it's speeding up. Let's just be real. It's speeding up. And if for some reason this younger generation of coaches understand the game better than those older ones, that's why we see guys out coaching a Bill Belichick. The only guy that's not going to be out coached is Andy Reid, and that's just because he's got Patrick Mahomes by his side. But he's the one guy I brought it to your attention that I would keep a close eye on as we're talking about Bill Belichick is what about the idea of Andy Reid calls it quits after this year? You want to talk about the perfect scenario to go into for Belichick? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. You go from Tom Brady to Patrick Mahomes with that defense? No way. I mean, Belichick is going to have some.
I will say this, though. If
Mm-hmm.
the Chiefs do win a week from this coming Sunday, and it's the same thing I said about if Travis Kelce is flirting with retirement, nobody's ever three-peated in the Super Bowl era.
Mm-mm.
You know, so like, yeah, like the Niners had an opportunity in 90. The Cowboys had an opportunity in the mid-90s. You know, they did win 3 out of 4, but the three was one time that the 49ers caught them in that decade.
Yeah, the best run that we have seen. Everyone says the Chiefs, 6 consecutive AFC Championship games, 4 Super Bowl appearances. How can you discredit the Steelers of the 70s winning 4 Super Bowls in 6 years? To me, they could have possibly won 6 in a row because they were still competitive those 2 years they didn't win. They lost.
It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy when you think about it. Like Madden's Raiders finally beat them that 1 year. And then you take into account how close those 2 Super Bowls were against your team, because let's say hypothetically, if you split, it's no one's decade. You guys split it down the middle. So essentially you both get equal credit for being like, that was the decade of the Steelers and Cowboys. Winning 2 Super Bowls in a decade is still pretty great. But the point I'm making is the Jackie Smith play is the one that truly stands out. There's other plays. You never want to just point at one play, one guy.
I think of Lynn Swann going down the sideline and making an incredible catch,
Mark Washington,
Yeah.
But with Zappy, Zappy just started a new joke. 3 black guys and a Mexican going in a bar. You didn't catch that one, did you? You're like 3 black guys and a Mexican. I'm like, that's a joke right there.
I didn't even catch that one.
Yeah, that's a joke.
And
right
Bill
there.
Belichick is the bartender,
right?
Or he's the guy looking for a drink, and he just can't find one because everyone's saying he's too old.
And why is he a bartender? Because he couldn't find any work.
Couldn't find a work.
Exactly.
Yeah, there it is.
No, it's great, man. I love the NFL. Obviously, it's been an incredible season. Nonetheless, ups and downs for both of us. Let's be real. I have a lot to say about Jerry Jones right now and stuff, but just the fact that we're finally here, gentlemen, it feels like the season just started last week, and now we're talking about a Super Bowl.
I think the team, and I'm a Cowboy head, but I still say the team that could have really won the most Super Bowls in a row was 90s Jimmy
Dallas.
Johnson. Yeah, I think if Jimmy stuck around, I think they would have got at least 5. At least 5.
It's a reasonable take because, and I said this before. And on the flip side of that, there's a couple of things. Jimmy and Jerry not getting along and him kind of being pushed out early. The Joe Montana hit by Leonard Marshall. The 49ers were probably going to win that game.
Yeah.
And the 49ers were probably going to beat Buffalo the next week, or at least I think they would have. So when I think about the what ifs, those 2 most definitely stand out to me, without question. They have to.
They do. And I look at the 1995 NFC Championship game between the Niners and Cowboys, which the Niners obviously won and went on to win the Super Bowl. If Jimmy's coaching that game against George Seifert, Jimmy's winning that game.
Jimmy's winning that game.
And Dallas is winning that game against the Chargers.
They go. They
will be. We win the following year, and it comes down to 97 year, the year that the Packers won it. Would it be Dallas?
That's what I say. I think he gets at least 5.
Yeah.
The ultimate what if to me, you know how this is the second time that we're getting Chiefs and Niners in a 5-year span. You know what's frustrating? We know that instead of seeing Buffalo make a Super Bowl for a 4th consecutive time and lose to the Dallas Cowboys for a 2nd consecutive year in a row, everybody and their mother wanted Montana versus Steve Young, 49ers versus Chiefs. And now that you're getting it so far removed, I don't care what anybody says. I know that Joe and Steve still have some form of a relationship where they probably talk every now and then.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to tell me that those two wouldn't be like, man, ain't this a bitch? Because that would have been like, there's a couple of Super Bowls that I'm like, damn, that would have been great. I'll give you another one. New York Jets, 2009, 2010, made the AFC Championship consecutive years with Mark Sanchez as the quarterback. He was clearly their weak link. Yep. Brett Favre was their quarterback in the 2008 season, wanted to link up with Brad Childress, wanted to stick it up Green Bay. Ultimately, Green Bay won a Super Bowl in 2010. The Vikings lost the NFC title game in 2009. But this is where I'm coming from. If Brett Favre stayed with the New York Jets, looking at what they had the 2 next years, I actually do believe that you would have got to see Brett Favre versus Aaron Rodgers, which would have been terrific. But I do want to give Zappy a chance to hit on this, the state of the Cowboys, according to Mike Zappy.
State of the Cowboys. I'll tell you what the state of the Cowboys is. It's an embarrassment. All right, so we're gonna rewind it back to yesterday with Jerry Jones making a couple of comments, and what I really heard was, thank you guys, everyone, thank you for tuning into Dallas, all the haters, all the lovers. Because of you, I'm the richest owner in pro sports. I have the wealthiest franchise. Jerry Jones said that this team is not going to approach this offseason as the continuing to rebuild type, but instead going all in. This is the same song we have heard over and over and over again. So does this mean that Jerry Jones is going to go and trade a 4th-round pick for another receiver? That's not going all in. Dallas has weaknesses on the offense and defense, specifically on the offensive line and defensive line in the trenches. Dallas needs a center. Tyler Biadasz, I don't see him being back. They need a center, but then we have to also talk about the left tackle position. If you could bring back a Tyron Smith on a 2-year deal, cap-friendly deal, 100% go it, and then you draft your tackle of the future in the 1st round. But it's the defensive side, and we saw the Packers, expose the Cowboys defense. Dan Quinn was not there. And I'll hit on Dan Quinn in a second. We saw the 49ers do the same thing. We saw the Bills do the same thing. It's in the trenches, running the ball. If Dallas is really all in, there's a defensive tackle out there by the name of Chris Jones that's fixing to be a free agent. And we don't know what's going to happen with this Chiefs team. We don't know if this is their last run, because Mahomes' contract is nothing small, And then you look at a guy like an Aaron Donald. Is that a guy that they can go out there and trade for? If you are telling the fans you're all in, the first thing the fans need to understand is whether you like it or don't, Dak Prescott has to be extended. There is no way this team can eat up a $60 million cap hit this year just to be able to say no. And here's the beautiful thing about it. The contract they're going to sign is going to go ahead and put them in position where after this year, if Dak does not perform, if Mike McCarthy does not come through, if our defensive coordinator, Dan Quinn, which we'll know in about 24 hours whether he's going to be with Dallas or taking the head coaching job with Washington, we're going to know what to see. This is what we talked about 2 years ago when we lost to the 49ers. This is what we talked about last year when we lost to the 49ers. And this is what we're talking about again this year when we lost to the Packers. It's, we're all in. Show it. There's so many things that this team needs. They need a one technique, a defensive tackle that can come in and be a force in the run game. That's where Chris Jones or an Aaron Donald comes into play. There's a linebacker out there that's about to be a free agent that I don't know if the Ravens are going to pay him, and that's Patrick Queen, because they just paid Roquan Smith. If you go get a Patrick Queen for that defense, get a true middle linebacker out there where you can put Micah on the outside and let him do his thing, And then you got to go get another cornerback, because while Stephon Gilmore played great for us, he's a year older, and you could see towards the end of the season he was slowing down. He is slowing down a lot, and the game is just passing by. Nothing against him.
He'll be back though.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll be back, but to ask him to be the number 1 corner again, and yes, we are getting Trayvon Diggs back, but he's still coming back off an ACL injury. Yeah. So, for a cornerback that has to do all the amount of cutting they do, it's still scary. So you still need some reinforcements in there. So I want to see Dallas approach this offseason by, you got to re-sign Dak. That's going to free up about $30 million in cap space. You restructure Terrence Steele. You restructure Trayvon Diggs. You cut or trade Michael Gallup. And you have to obviously resign CeeDee Lamb because his cap hit is $17.5 million because he's under the 50-year tenure, which is all guaranteed money. So if they obviously Dak and CeeDee will be the top two things that they have to do. Once they do that, they will be able to make noise in free agency. And like Micah Parsons said today, if we're all in, let's go get the players we need to put us over the top. Hell, trade for Stephon Diggs. We know he's going to open his mouth about Josh Allen here soon. Where was he? If you look at the Bills, the last 10 weeks of the season, Stephon Diggs was non-existent. It was the Khalil Shakir show, So it might be the point where the Bills are ready to move on from him. So it's one of those, Jerry. Enough with the talk. You're the best salesman in America. You are a guy that literally learned from failure as you opened a chain of pizza restaurants that failed in the state of Missouri, moved back down to Arkansas, and became a wealthy businessman. Because that's most business people are going to fail. But right now, he might not think he's failing, but in the Dallas Cowboys fan base, the ones that have been around a long time, not your 5-10 year guys, the guys like myself that have seen this team win
20 years plus,
20 plus years. It's time. We know what the problem is. It's been you all along. You can't. All right, we had Bill Parcells. Parcells couldn't handle. We had Jason. We had when it's the same tune, and I'm so sick and tired of it. But there are things that can fix this team. But the way I look at Dallas next year is one: you're going to make the moves. You're going to be another 12-win, 13-win team, be fighting for things at the end, or we're going to be a 9-8 team and just crash completely, and we're just going to blow it up.
Zappy, I trashed Cowboys. I had to defend Trayvon Diggs and Dak Prescott over this past week. There was a few fans that said, why don't we trade Trayvon Diggs and Dak Prescott, which you can't trade Dak Prescott because he has a no trade clause.
People that make these comments do not look at anything on.
This is a bunch of them. There's a bunch
and
of
that's
them.
And that's the one thing I will say about Dak. I guarantee this next contract, that no trade clause will not be on there.
But see, that's what I'm saying. I said, you're going to trade your corner, who's proven that he can ball. I said, regardless of how Dak performed in play, I said, the guy has game. I said, you can't cut him.
No,
you can't trade him. He's a no. And I was trying to explain to him, you can't do. We could do that, and we could move Trey Lance. I said,
wait, ho! Didn't you do that in our fantasy league?
And what happened? I had the exact same record as our New York Giants at the same week. I learned I learned my lesson. But see, I was they said it was like, well, you're a Cowboy hater. I said, I am. I said, but I'm also a real. So I said, you can't trade your quarterback and expect to bring Trey Lance up and expect him to do what Dak did.
Trey Lance.
That would be.
He's got. I went in. I was.
It'll be after this year.
It was like 13, 14. It was the comments were coming down and said, you guys are crazy. You're going to trade Trayvon Diggs and Dak, who you can't trade, and you're going to say bring up freaking Trey Lance? I said, do y'all know what y'all saying?
Trey Lance still needs another year of.
That is such that is like a shot in the dark in terms of what he can be, or if he's going to be.
No trade clause.
And that's the thing people need to understand, because here, I'll give it to you right now. As we already know, Dak Prescott is a $60 million hit this year, and he's due a $5 million roster bonus in March. But if you try to trade Trayvon Diggs, you are taking on a huge here. You want to know what the dead money? You're taking on $30 million of dead money on top of $60 million for Dak. So let's go into the 2024 season with $90 million in dead money. Trey Lance is our fucking quarterback, but we're still going to be $42 million under the cap. Where no, it doesn't work. I'm sorry, Trayvon is not going anywhere because.
But there is a silver lining. There is a silver lining. Zeke said that he would play for the league minimum.
Well, yeah, I'd take Zeke back in a heartbeat. But that's another thing I will bring up is if there's one thing I can tell you, gentlemen, right now, that when free agency starts, either Derrick Henry or Saquon Barkley, probably Derrick Henry, will have a star on the helmet, and Dallas will be drafting a running back. I think Tony Pollard played himself out of Dallas unless he takes a really small deal.
He only made two more yards than he did the previous year.
Before we move it along to the awards. We're coming up on about the 20-minute mark, so I do want to hit on the awards. I'm going to make this short and sweet because this was a lot more pertinent to what people are actually concerned about.
Mm-hmm.
Because our Giants, I can wait. I'm just going to say a couple of quick things. Joe Walt, pick 6 on the board. Take him. J.J. McCarthy out of Michigan, you might be able to trade up into the back end of the first round to snag your quarterback of the future.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I said it to Zappy, it's rather simple. We know what our team needs are. Address them. Get yourself an interior offensive lineman. Get yourself another corner to play opposite of Tay Banks. That's all I got right now. I'm not going to get too boisterous and get over the top with the New York Giants until I know who the fuck's running our defense. Are we going to run a 4-3? Are we going to run a 3-4? You know, I want to wait until I know this for a fact. Now, as the awards go, I'd like you guys to kind of say agree, disagree, whatever have you, and kind of like a quick little stab at it. I want to make sure we fit all these in, but I'm going to start here. Rookie of the Year on defense. Richie's top 3. Only speaking for myself. Will Anderson, defensive end out of the Houston Texans. By the way, I don't care who they nominated. These are just my thoughts. Mm-hmm. Brian Branch, safety, Detroit Lions. Jalen Carter, defensive tackle, Philadelphia Eagles. Short, sweet, and simple. While the Eagles did have a very disappointing failure in the second half of their season after the big Dom, Dre Greenlaw incident that was like the domino that everything just fell backwards on. There was also the fact that they their secondary was terrible, and that Jalen Hurts got exposed. But Jalen Carter, in my estimation, while I still question some of his character and his maturity levels, that is the best choice here for Rookie of the Year on defense, in my opinion.
I mean, when you're looking at Will Anderson, you're looking at Jalen Carter, you're looking at Brian Branch or Will Witherspoon or what's the other guy that's up for Defensive Rookie of the Year?
I mean, dude, I'm not saying he should. I thought
it'll come.
Listen, I'm not pushing it to the top of the top, but I do believe that Deontay Banks, at minimum, should just get an honorable mention because I thought towards the second half of the year he was truly playing like a seasoned veteran, he, in my estimation, outplayed the guy who was the popular pick, Joey Porter Jr.
And Joey Porter's up for Rookie of the Year. He's the other one. When I look at the list you provided, I mean, I think the easy answer is Jalen Carter because if you look at that Eagles team, a team that started off with an incredible 10-1 record to watch them implode right before the country's eyes. If there was one bright spot on that team, it was Jalen Carter. That guy is going to be a fit for our teams for the next 10 years. Let's be real. Jalen Carter is a great, great interior defensive lineman, and he's got a great first step. I mean, this guy's got a great punch, everything. I look at Will Anderson. I think the only reason why we're talking about Will Anderson is because of the success of the Houston Texans this year, because Will Anderson didn't have that big of a year. It didn't compare to that of Jalen Carter. So I got to agree with Richie on this one. I think Jalen Carter wins Defensive Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, same here. If Joey Porter Jr. was on, I would put Joey Porter, but Jalen Carter.
Yeah. Rookie of the Year on offense. This one's too easy, but I'm not gonna. We already know it's C.J. Stroud. That's too easy. But Sam Laporta definitely earned my respect this year. Zay Flowers, although he's having a rough week after some of his very much so rookie mistakes in that fateful playoff loss to the Kansas City Chiefs. Laporta, they got rid of Hawkinson at the right time. This kid is the real deal on so many metrics of his game. He does everything good, not just catching the football. He's a good blocker. He is already at a very young age mastering the route tree, very reliable hands, and just a guy that understands their schematics. He is a very good ball player. Zay Flowers, a super talented kid, but very much so just immaturity central at the worst possible time. C.J. Stroud, on the other hand, plays like a guy that has been in this league for 5 years or more, and it's only going to get better barring a bad injury. And that's why Stroud gets it. This is a quarterback-driven league. But I do want to give some of these other guys their just due. And, their impacts are obvious. You know, you watch any of these teams play this year, and these are guys that you're going to hear their names literally every Sunday. But it's C.J. Stroud running away. Not much of a conversation on that.
I'm going Stroud also because you got to think about what he took over on offense. You know, a rookie, one of the worst teams in the league. You know, I mean, I know they had a pretty decent defense last year, but the offense was just, and he carried that team, man. He was a leader, and the quarterback is the point guard of the team. It's the guy that makes everything happen. And he jumped in there, and he never got rattled. He took him to the playoffs.
Yeah.
So I got to give it
Absolutely.
to him.
I'm with you on that.
But Laporta's going to be a beast, though.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
I'm looking at your list here, Richie, and obviously I love Sam Laporta. I think what that guy brings to the Lions is incredible. He's going to be a great tight end for the next 10, 15 years.
Yeah.
Of course, CJ Stroud's going to be on there. Zay Flowers, to me, I don't think should be in that conversation. I would definitely have Puka Nacua ahead of him because what Puka Nacua did this year, no other rookie has done. I mean, the guy broke the rookie wide receiving yards record. And that dude, really, if you take him out of that Rams offense, we never see the Rams make the playoffs. Mm-hmm. He's the reason why Cooper Kupp finally got going again, you know? Mm-hmm. And then the other guy I want to talk about, or two guys, they're both running backs. Bijan would be in this conversation if it wasn't for Arthur Smith and the guy that said, hey, we're going to draft you at 8, but not use you. I mean, who does that? But Jahmyr Gibbs, I think, was a very, very big reason why this Detroit Lions team went 12-5 this year, made it to the NFC Championship game, and quite frankly, should have won that game. But they didn't, you know. But because, like Richie said, this is a quarterback-driven league. Mm-hmm. Like the MVP usually goes to the quarterback.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud had statistically a better season than that of Dak Prescott and Ben Roethlisberger's rookie years. Those two guys did take their teams to the playoffs the way CJ Stroud did, but they had more wins. Dak had 13 wins. Ben had 12 wins, I believe. But the winner's going to be CJ Stroud. There's no question about it. This is a guy that got all the hate coming up to the draft. He did horrible on his what's that test that they take? The Wonderlic test.
Wonderlic, yeah.
It did, and then he's an Ohio State quarterback. We know the history of all the Ohio State quarterbacks. He had everything going against him, and the Texans didn't blink. They knew they wanted him, and they got themselves a gem. But yeah, CJ Stroud for me as well.
It's funny because Carolina gave up everything to get Bryce Harper when they could have got CJ Stroud. Yeah, I mean Bryce Young. I'm thinking baseball. Baseball season right around the corner, man.
I know.
Yeah, I know.
I get to wave this around for another year.
You made that clear.
But yeah, that's where I'm at with those two.
Yeah.
Most improved player, Jordan Love, for the simple reason that it's kind of like a rookie campaign, but he's not, because he did get a very minimal action last year. Aaron Rodgers manned down that position directly after Brett Favre. But what Jordan Love accomplished this year, and to think that he was only a couple of plays away from being in the NFC title game playing those Lions, it would have been in Detroit. It's pretty wild. The last 2 losses of his year were to Brock Purdy and to Tommy DeVito. I'm going to blame the weather in part to his terrible performance against the Giants. But Jordan Love showed me so much during the course of this season. And, it went from a narrative that him and Matt LaFleur couldn't coexist to, holy shit, they're not missing the 4-time league MVP anymore. And it happened really fast. He's not a flash in the pan. He's not a flavor of the month. Yet again, Green Bay Packers get it right at the quarterback position for the 3rd consecutive time. And that is not easy to do.
I'm gonna be a homer here because I love this team. But my most improved player for this year is a man out of the University of Notre Dame, a running back. Was drafted by the Rams. He did not have zero impact his rookie year. A lot of people considered him a guy that might be getting some touches on 3rd downs. He got the opportunity, and we saw what happened with him this year. Over 1,100 yards rushing, 12 touchdowns, another 3 touchdowns receiving. For me, Kyron Williams would be most improved player. Nothing against Jordan Love. I love the guy. I think he's going to be. I think the Packers have their quarterback of the future again. But I got to send a shout out to my boy Kyron Williams out there.
Oh no, I like the shout. The only reason why I think it hurts Kyron's case is because similar to how you made a good point about Nakua, I think in this case it also helps because this is the era of the pass first, opening up the run. But I still like the shout because Kyron Williams, hell of a ball player and an even better human being. Defensive Player of the Year. This I think Zappy's gonna like this. I got two Cowboys and one Niner. Deron Bland because of the scoop and score ratios. Micah Parsons because he's Micah fucking Parsons. Nick Bosa because of obvious reasons. I'm going to say it like this. Micah is the most important player to his defense of the three guys named. It is Micah. Even though Micah, unfortunately, schematically, the Packers did a very good job of keeping him out of their backfield. Jordan Love was barely touched that game. Micah's going to come back stronger. Deron Bland, he had moments of getting cooked, but he also had toughness where he would respond well. And I got Micah on this. I'm going to come circle it around, but I just want to give the viewers a chance, being that we're coming up in the last 10 minutes. Offensive Player of the Year, I've got Tyreek Hill, Lamar Jackson, Raheem Mostert. The reason why I had no choice but to mention Raheem Mostert was because you could have even technically put him in the most improved category with 21 total touchdowns. Mm-hmm. It's Tyreek Hill, boys. It's Tyreek Hill to me. It's got to be Tyreek Hill with the Madden-like crush numbers that he puts up. Now, granted, we saw many a meme comparing him to the fella from Cool Runnings, Taken to the Cold. But Reek is his own entity, phenomenal ball player. And to speak on the great job the Kansas City Chiefs did, they've lost this guy and are still winning, which is remarkable. They won one with him, and they're probably a week and a half away from winning two without him. Comeback Player of the Year. Sorry, Zap. I'm going to come back at the very end here.
Oh, got you.
Yeah, I'm going to let you guys finish it out strong. And, I want to just kind of zoom quick so that way you boys can talk at the end. Richie's top 3-4 comeback player of the year. Damar Hamlin, it goes without saying why he's on this list. Baker Mayfield of the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, career resurrection. This is a guy that I think a lot of people thought last year would probably be out of the league in another year. Joe Flacco, in any other scenario, would be the comeback player of the year because he literally got off his couch. The reason it has to be Damar Hamlin, no matter what, is because this wasn't improving from an injury. This wasn't improving from playing like ass. This was cheating death and coming back and playing the game that he loves yet again. And not only that, but going back to the site where we know what happened in Cincinnati. So to say it's remarkable is an understatement. To say that the praise for those who tended to him so well and so quickly and so fiercely, I think an encouraging thing is that it showed the humanity in people when this happened, because while it was an ultra competitive scene because of what was at stake in the game, not to mention the fierce Pops Cheddar in the Sun Bowl between Mr. Zappy and I. But the God's honest truth is you saw people come together and say how unimportant football really is in the grander scheme of things. That's somebody's son, that's somebody's brother. DeMar's not a father yet, but the point to be made is it was a great story and very inspirational. And to see people come together for something good as opposed to us always coming together for something toxic or something tragic, it was encouraging to say the least. It's Damar Hamlin for that reason alone. And one thing I will say about Mr. Flacco, Mr. Mayfield, they'll be on their feet cheering Damar on because they know what it is. Most valuable player, got to mention Reek again, but it's Lamar Jackson. Brock Purdy also deserves a mention here because I do believe that Brock Purdy, while he has been under some scrutiny the last couple of weeks, and while I think Steve Spagnuolo is going to put him through quite a long day on Super Bowl Sunday, he has very much so grown, and he's mystery relevant. It's incredible how far he has come. Coach of the Year is my last one here. And And as Lamar goes, we already saw what he did. Pocket passing presence has gotten so much more improved to him. Head coach of the year, Dan Campbell is my choice. DeMeco Ryans, Houston Texans. Actually, I'm going to backtrack on that. DeMeco Ryans edges Dan Campbell for one reason and one reason only. He took over a worse team. Dan Campbell had these boys close last year, and DeMeco Ryans would have took 3 fucking points 2 different fucking times. Kevin Stefanski going through the quarterback carousel deserves the honorable mention, but when you go head-to-head with DeMeco outcoached him. Dan Campbell outcoached himself. I can't even say that Shanahan outcoached him. Game ball to Dan Campbell coming via Santa Clara. Sorry, guys. That's all I got on that. Mr. Zappy, Mr. Idris, you got about 5 minutes if you want to kind of rebuttal anything that I saw here or just add to it.
So I'll start with Coach of the Year. For me, it's Kevin Stefanski. When you're going through the amount of quarterbacks you went through, and you have to bring on Joe Flacco from. Thank you. Bringing in Joe Flacco off the streets, and then losing Nick Chubb for the season, and all the other things the Browns had to go through. Yes, DeMeco did outcoach him, but he got outcoached in the regular season, and the Coach of the Year is a regular season award, so we cannot take that playoff game into consideration in this regard. That's why I give it to Stefanski. Go ahead, Idris.
Yeah, I'm going Stefanski too, for the fact you got 4 or 5 quarterbacks, and it's like, let's keep it moving. Yeah, I like DeMeco because what he did, but I mean, when you have a quarterback turnover so much like that in one season, and you still keep him competitive, I gotta go Stefanski.
Yeah, and then as far as defensive player of the year, as much as I would love to see Micah, in my opinion, that guy does not deserve it. When you're talking about guys like Myles Garrett, T.J. Watt, Max Crosby, Deron Bland, who set the record for pick sixes. And any other year, Deron Bland would be the guy. But I actually think that it would be TJ Watt that gets Defensive Player of the Year, because he's also someone that you could consider putting in for Comeback Player of the Year. But because of the resume that DeMar Hamlin has, he doesn't compete with that. 19 sacks on the season, 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, couple of interceptions, a defensive touchdown. TJ Watt has the stat line to be Defensive Player of the Year. What was the other one? Offensive Player of the Year. For me, it's CMC. I think Tyreek Hill and CeeDee Lamb actually help CMC out. When you talk about this being a quarterback-driven league, all we see are balls thrown. I mean, CeeDee Lamb had 170 targets or something like that. Tyreek Hill had 167. That's a lot. You're going to get yards that way. CMC had to go through the ringer a lot of times, and he carried that 49er offense. Coach, what was the other one we need?
Comeback player. No.
Oh, most valuable player. Yeah, it's Lamar. But I will be the guy that says, don't be surprised if Dak is right there at number 2, because it's hard to say any of these guys separated themselves, because Lamar and Dak didn't play each other. Lamar did put a beating on Brock Purdy. Purdy put a beating on Dallas. You know, there's too many things. So I think this is the hardest one. But I think Offensive Player of the Year goes CMC, with MVP going to Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I love Lamar for MVP for the sheer fact that I look at what Purdy has to work with. I look at what Dak had to work with on the offensive side of the ball. Now, granted, it's still not ideal because, Cooks had moments of disappearing acts and moments of greatness. But, we know what CeeDee Lamb brings. We know what Deebo Samuel, Ayuk Kittle brings. But when I think about Lamar doing it with an aging Odell Beckham, who's there more so on the coaching level when you really think about it, as a practice guy that gets these guys built up. Say Flowers, good player. All the running backs getting injured. But once again, still can't shake that narrative in the playoffs. Idris, you're up.
I go with everything Zappy said, except instead of CMC, I'm going CeeDee Lamb.
I like that.
I want to say Lamb.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to say Lamb over Hill as much as I want to. The only reason is Tyreek had 50 yards more receiving in one less game than Lamb. He had 2 more touchdowns than Lamb, and again, 1 less game played. That's the only reason why I can't put Lamb ahead of him.
I'm going Lamb because I'm using competition. Because Dallas played some tough teams too. They played Buffalo, they played Philly, they played Frisco. I mean, and Buffalo blasted Miami. I mean, they put it on Dallas, but I gotta go CD, man.
I'd love to see it.
I gotta go CD.
I would
I'm
love to see it.
I'm actually a CD fan. I'm not gonna lie. He's my that Cowboy team. CD's my dude.
Fleeting thought on the way out. Way too early hot take. Detroit Lions and Green Bay Packers will have the two best records in the NFC. The NFC North, I almost said Central, will be sending 3 teams to the playoffs next year with the Chicago Bears getting in on the back end. For Idris, for Mike, I am Richie. Thank you so much for watching. Please make it a point, like, and subscribe to the channel, the Richie X Jr. Sports Podcast on YouTube. And happy motherfucking birthday to me. Peace, boys.
Let's go.